During their traditional Christmas dinner at her parents' home, Gertrude discovers that her credit card has been charged a staggering $3,700 for all the family gifts. When she confronts her father about this unexpected expense, he casually reveals that the family had voted for her to cover the costs, simply because she doesn't have children. A surge of anger courses through her as she grips her phone tightly, calmly stating, "Then you'll love what comes next." Her father responds with a dismissive laugh, seemingly unconcerned. The following day, her phone erupts with a flurry of notifications. 37 missed calls flood in, with cousins shouting in panic, her mother pleading, and her father desperately asking her to reverse her actions. Despite the pressure surrounding her childless status, I always believed I shared a strong bond with my family. At 32, I have established myself as a successful financial advisor at Preston and Holloway, one of the most esteemed firms in the Northeast. My family has always appeared proud of my professional achievements, if not entirely supportive of my personal choices. Growing up, I felt particularly close to my dad. William Hanson was my idol, coaching my softball team, teaching me the ins and outs of changing a tire, and later encouraging my pursuit of finance, recognizing my aptitude for numbers. When I bought my first car, he guided me through negotiating the price down by nearly $2,000. I believed our bond was unbreakable. 3 weeks before Christmas, my mom called to discuss holiday plans. "Gee, Gertrude," she began. "Honey, your father and I would love to host Christmas at our house this year. With all the little ones running around, it just makes more sense to have everyone here." I agreed without hesitation, knowing their colonial home had ample space for my 3 siblings and their families. Troy and his wife had 2 boys, Jessica had 3 daughters with her husband, and even my younger brother Adam had just welcomed twins with his wife last spring. "I can help with the shopping," I suggested, eager to lend a hand. "I know how busy you are with the grandkids always coming over." My mom's voice brightened with relief as she replied, "That would be wonderful, sweetheart. I'll give you my card when you come over this weekend." That Saturday, I arrived at their home to start planning. Mom handed me a credit card explaining, "This is connected to your father's account. We've budgeted $150 per person, which includes all 15 grandchildren." Over the next 3 weeks, I dedicated my weekends and evenings to carefully selecting gifts. For my nephew Carson, the budding space enthusiast, I found a telescope that would ignite his curiosity. For my niece Abigail, who adored art, I purchased a professional drawing tablet. Each gift was chosen with thoughtfulness and care, even for my siblings and their spouses, as I wanted everyone to feel cherished. Christmas Eve came, bringing the familiar chaos of my large extended family. Alongside my siblings and their kids, aunts, uncles, and cousins filled the house, 27 people in total. The delightful aroma of pine cinnamon wafted through the air, mingling with my mother's famous roast turkey. Children darted through the hallways, while the adults congregated in the living room, sipping eggnog and wine. During dinner, my phone buzzed with a banking notification. Out of curiosity, I discreetly checked my app under the table and was taken aback to see a series of large charges I didn't recognize. A quick investigation revealed they were all the gift purchases I had made over the past weeks, culminating in an astonishing total of $3,700. Confused, I approached my mother in the kitchen. "Mom, I think there's been a mistake with the credit card you gave me. The charges are showing up on my account." She averted her gaze, suddenly engrossed in arranging cookies on a platter. Dad joined us, closing the kitchen door behind him. "What's the problem, Gertie?" "All the Christmas gifts are showing up on my credit card, not yours," I asked, my heart racing. Dad cleared his throat, his demeanor nonchalant. "No mistake. We transferred the funds from your card to ours." I stared at him, my mind struggling to grasp the implications. "What do you mean, transferred? You used my money for all the gifts?" He shrugged, responding casually as if discussing the weather. "We took a family vote. Since you don't have kids, we figured you should cover the expenses for those who do. You can afford it with that fancy job of yours, and the rest of us have college funds to think about." The kitchen felt as though it was tilting sideways beneath me. "You voted without me?" "It just makes sense, financially speaking." You're only buying for yourself while the rest of us have multiple mouths to feed. I glanced past him into the dining room where my siblings were pointedly avoiding eye contact. They knew. They had all known. You had no right to make that decision for me, I said, my voice trembling with emotion. Dad patted my shoulder in a condescending manner. Sometimes family has to make tough calls. You'll understand when you have kids of your own. Oh, wait, he chuckled, adding, you've decided not to, right? In that moment, something shattered within me. Years of comments about my biological clock and selfish lifestyle crystallized into stark clarity. This wasn't just about Christmas gifts. It was about punishing me for not living life on their terms. I need some air, I said, pushing past him. Stepping out onto the back porch, I scrolled through my banking history and made a horrifying discovery. Small transfers from my accounts to my parents had been occurring for months. $50 here, $75 there. As I delved further into my banking history, I uncovered evidence that my father had been monitoring my finances for years, always aware of exactly how much I could afford to contribute to family expenses. When I returned to the dining room, an eerie calm enveloped me. Everyone's eyes were on me as I gathered my coat and purse. "Leaving so soon, Gertie?" Dad called out. "We haven't even done the gift exchange yet." I turned to face my family, the people I had trusted my entire life. "I know about the transfers, Dad. I know you've been accessing my accounts without my permission." His face paled slightly, but he quickly regained his composure. "Don't be dramatic. Family helps family." Shaking with a mix of rage and betrayal, I clutched my phone and locked eyes with him. "Then you'll love what comes next." Dad chuckled, glancing around at the others. "Hear that, everyone? Princess Gertrude is making threats now." As I strode out the door, I heard my mother call after me, but I didn't turn back. In my car, I sat for a moment, my hands trembling on the steering wheel. Then, with determination, I opened my laptop and began typing emails that would alter everything. I drove home in a blur of tears, the Christmas lights from neighborhood houses streaking across my vision like accusatory fingers. But by the time I reached my apartment, my sadness had crystallized into something harder, sharper, and more focused. Most people don't realize how interconnected the business world truly is, especially in a mid-sized city like ours. As a senior financial advisor at Preston and Holloway, I had spent years cultivating a network of contacts, recommending trustworthy service providers to clients, and yes, often directing business toward my own family members. My father's construction company, Hanson Building Solutions, had secured 3 major contracts in the past year alone, all thanks to my recommendations. The Lakeside Corporate Park project would never have materialized without my endorsement of his company's reliability to the investors. My brother Troy's architectural firm had been brought in on at least 5 projects through the connections I had cultivated. Jessica's interior design business managed to stay afloat primarily due to the affluent clients I directed her way. Even Adam's new restaurant had received startup funding from one of my firm's partners after I orchestrated an introduction. They had happily benefited from my connections while simultaneously harboring resentment toward my success. The hypocrisy was staggering. At 11:30 that night, I dialed Bernard Preston, the founding partner of my firm, knowing he would still be awake poring over reports. "Bernard, I apologize for calling so late on Christmas Eve, but I've encountered a serious potential conflict of interest situation that needs immediate attention." His tone shifted to one of alertness. "What's happened, Gertrude?" "I've discovered some troubling financial entanglements with family members whose businesses I've recommended to our clients. I need to formally withdraw all my endorsements until this can be properly sorted out." "This sounds serious. Should we be worried about liability?" "I'm preparing documentation now," I assured him. "I'll have everything on your desk the day after Christmas, but I wanted to notify you immediately that I'll be contacting the affected clients tonight." "I trust your judgment, Gertrude. You're one of our most ethical advisors. Do what you need to do." For the next 3 hours, I meticulously drafted carefully worded emails to clients who had engaged my father's company, disclosing a previously unknown conflict of interest regarding Hansen Building Solutions. While I had always believed my recommendation was based solely on merit, I had now uncovered financial irregularities that compelled me to withdraw my professional endorsement effective immediately. I sent similar emails regarding Troy's firm, Jessica's design company, and Adam's restaurant. I didn't allege any specific wrongdoing. I didn't need to. In the financial world, the mere hint of impropriety is enough to send clients fleeing. To each family member, I scheduled a delayed email to be dispatched the following afternoon, explaining that their vote regarding Christmas gifts had professional repercussions. As you've decided, I should bear financial burdens without consent. I can no longer, in good conscience, maintain professional relationships that might be similarly compromised. I worked meticulously, documenting every irregular transaction I could find, every instance where family obligations had been masked as business opportunities. I compiled a spreadsheet detailing all the funds that had been siphoned from my accounts without explicit permission over the years. The total was staggering, nearly $37,000. It made me feel physically ill. At 3 in the morning, I finally succumbed to sleep, setting my phone to Do Not Disturb. The storm would hit soon enough. I woke at 10 to find my notification screen flooded with missed calls, texts, and voicemails. As I scrolled through them, a text from Troy caught my eye. What the hell? Gertrude Sinclair Development just pulled out of our contract. Dad's going ballistic. Minutes later, my phone rang. It was my father's business partner, Grant Wilson. Gertrude, I don't know what's happened between you and your father, but we just lost the Lakeside project. 3 years of work gone overnight. The investors said they received concerning information about financial practices. I'm sorry to hear that, Grant, I replied evenly. Unfortunately, I had recently uncovered some financial irregularities involving family accounts that made it ethically imperative for me to withdraw my professional support. But the Lakeside project is worth millions. Your father's beside himself. Perhaps he should have considered the consequences before making financial decisions on my behalf without my consent. More calls followed. Jessica's largest client had canceled their contract. Adam's restaurant investor was reconsidering their commitment. Every business connection I had facilitated for my family was unraveling all at once. Around noon, I received an unexpected call from my mother's cousin, Diane, who worked as a receptionist at my father's company. Gertrude, I'm probably risking my job by telling you this, but you should know what your parents have been saying about you. They've been telling potential partners you might date that you have mental issues and need to be handled carefully. I've heard your mother say it myself when men call for you. The revelation struck me like a physical blow. My perpetually single status suddenly made more sense. How many relationships had been sabotaged before they could even begin? Why would they do that? I asked, stunned. Diane's voice lowered. From what I can gather, they worry that if you start a serious relationship, you'll prioritize your partner over family. They need your financial support too much to risk it. The pieces clicked into place with a sickening clarity. They weren't just exploiting me financially, they were actively working to keep me isolated and dependent on family for emotional support, all while criticizing me for not having children. The family that had shaped my identity and sense of belonging had been systematically manipulating me for years. The Christmas gift vote wasn't an isolated incident. This was merely the first time they had been brazen enough to confront me about their exploitation to my face. At 1 o'clock, my phone lit up with a call from my father, which I let go to voicemail. His message oscillated between rage and pleading. What the hell do you think you're doing? You're destroying this family. Please, Gertie, whatever this is about, we can fix it. Call me back immediately. I didn't. Instead, I reached out to my company's IT department, requesting a review of all access to my work accounts for potential security breaches. Then, I changed every password, ordered a credit freeze, and scheduled appointments with both my bank's fraud department and a lawyer specializing in financial crimes. The family that had taught me about money and success had also instilled in me a sense of consequences, though perhaps not in the way they intended. They were about to learn that lesson themselves. The doorbell rang at 7 that evening. Through the peephole, I saw my brother Troy shifting nervously from foot to foot. I considered ignoring him, but ultimately decided to confront whatever was coming my way. When I opened the door, Troy looked terrible. His eyes were bloodshot, his hair unkempt, and his usually pristine button-down was wrinkled as if he had slept in it. "Can I come in?" he asked quietly. I stepped aside wordlessly. Troy had always been the diplomatic one, the family mediator. If they were sending him, they must be desperate. "There's an emergency family meeting happening right now at Mom and Dad's," he said. "They sent me to bring you." "I'm not going." "Gertie, you have to understand, everything's falling apart. Dad's company might lose the Miller contract too. That's 40% of their annual revenue. Jessica's best client just fired her." "And Adam's investor is pulling out. What did you do?" "Exactly what I said I would. I withdrew my professional support from businesses that I can no longer ethically endorse." Troy ran his hands through his hair, exasperated over the Christmas gifts. "This seems extreme, Gertie." "It's not about the gifts. It's about the systematic financial exploitation that's apparently been happening for years, with everyone's knowledge except mine." He collapsed onto my couch, suddenly deflating. "I voted against it. You know, when Dad proposed making you pay for Christmas, I told them it wasn't fair." "But you didn't warn me." "I was outvoted." He looked up, his expression pained. "There's something else you should know." Troy pulled out his phone and played a recording. I recognized the voices immediately. My parents, Jessica, Adam, and various aunts and uncles in a heated discussion. "We need to approach this carefully," my mother was saying. "Gertrude has always been sensitive about feeling included. If we frame it as us needing her help during a difficult time, just tell her we'll pay her back. We won't, obviously, but it'll buy us time to fix this mess." "Jessica, you're closest to her," my father said. "Take the kids over tomorrow. She can't resist those little faces. Get her to agree to a sit-down and say what?" Jessica sounded frustrated. "She's torpedoed my biggest account. Abigail's private school tuition is due next month." My Uncle Frank's voice cut in. "Will you all listen to yourselves? You've been bleeding that girl dry for years, and now you're surprised she's finally had enough? I'm with Diane on this. What you've all been doing is shameful." The recording ended, and Troy looked at me, guilt etched on his face. There's a faction forming. Uncle Frank, Aunt Helen, Cousin Lucy. "They're all saying this has gone too far." My phone buzzed with texts from my nieces and nephews. "Auntie Gertie, we miss you. When are you coming back? Did we do something wrong?" The messages carried the stilted quality of parental-directed communication. "They're using the children now," I said, showing Troy the screen. He had the decency to look ashamed. "Jessica's idea." My phone rang. It was my mother. When I didn't answer, she left a tearful voicemail. "Gertrude, please call us. Your father might lose everything. We need to talk as a family." 10 minutes later, my father called. His message was less emotional and more tactical. "Gertie, this has gone far enough. You've made your point. Now it's time to act like an adult and fix the damage you've caused. Call me back within the hour, or I'll have no choice but to take more serious measures." "What does he mean by serious measures?" I asked Troy. He wouldn't meet my eyes. "That's the other reason I'm here. Dad's been accessing your financial information, not just viewing it. He's taken out loans." "What?" "Using your information, your social security number, copies of your ID, he has a whole file." The room seemed to spin. "That's fraud. That's criminal." I know, and if you push this, if you keep withdrawing support from family businesses, he's threatening to make it look like you were complicit, like you authorized everything. The betrayal was so profound I could barely breathe. The father who taught me about financial responsibility had been committing fraud in my name. Troy, you need to leave. Gertie, please just come talk to everyone. We can work this out as a family. There is no family right now. There are criminals, and there's me. Get out. After he left, I immediately called the credit bureau's fraud department and reported the unauthorized access to my accounts. I requested a thorough audit of all accounts linked to my Social Security number. Then I contacted the police to file a report. At midnight, my father called again. His voice had lost its authoritative edge, replaced by something I had never heard before. The bank called me, he said without preamble, something about a fraud investigation. Gertrude, you don't understand what you're doing. I understand perfectly. You committed identity theft against your own daughter. It wasn't like that. I was just borrowing against your excellent credit to help the family. Everything was going to be paid back. With what money, Dad? A long pause followed. There are things you don't know about the family finances, about the business. Like what? Another pause. I've had to move some money around over the years, between accounts, the company's, personal ones. I always put it back. But with these contracts being canceled, the cash flow isn't there. The implications hit me like a truck. You've been embezzling. That's an ugly word for helping families survive. I did what I had to do, and now your little tantrum is exposing everything. Do you realize what will happen if this continues? Prison, Gertrude, for your own father. The manipulation was so blatant it almost made me laugh. You should have thought about that before committing fraud. I'm begging you, stop the fraud investigation. Tell the clients everything's fine. We'll figure out the rest. No. Gertrude Eleanor Hansen, I am your father, and I'm your daughter, not your personal ATM. I think we're done here. I hung up and turned off my phone. Sleep was impossible. The father I had idolized my entire life was in fact a criminal who had been exploiting me for years. The mother who had always urged me to be generous had been enabling him. My siblings, whom I believed were my closest allies, had been complicit in this charade. The perfect family facade had not just crumbled, it had exploded, revealing something ugly and corrupt lurking beneath. I was only beginning to grasp how deep the corruption truly ran. For 3 days, I maintained my isolation, working remotely and screening all calls. The family bombardment continued, pleading messages, angry accusations, and thinly veiled threats. I documented everything meticulously for my growing legal file. On the 4th day after Christmas, an unexpected knock came at my door. Peering through the peephole, I saw my father's sister, Aunt Helen, holding what appeared to be a gift bag. Helen had always been the family outlier, divorced twice, with no children, running her own bookkeeping service. My father often made comments about her unconventional choices. Cautiously, I opened the door. "Before you close it in my face," she said quickly, "I'm not here as a family ambassador. I'm here because I've been where you are." I let her in, and she placed the gift bag on my coffee table. The kids made these before everything blew up. They actually do miss you. She pulled out handmade ornaments, cards, and a clay handprint from my youngest niece. "Thanks," I said, "but I'm guessing you didn't come just to deliver crafts." Helen sat down suddenly, looking every one of her 62 years. "No, I came to tell you, you're not the first, and if you back down now, you won't be the last." "What do you mean?" "Your grandfather did the same thing to your father that he's doing to you." Financial manipulation, guilt, and family obligation wielded as a weapon. It was a pattern that stretched back generations. She pulled out an old photo album. Your grandfather controlled the family money. Your father had to beg for everything, justifying every single expense. When your father started his business, the financial strings came with emotional chains. That's why I left at 18 and never looked back. I flipped through photos I had never seen before. My father, as a young man, looked beaten down in a way I recognized all too well from my own reflection lately. He became what he hated, I whispered. That's how trauma works sometimes, Helen said gently. But understanding doesn't require forgiveness or the continuation of exploitation. I've watched them do this to you for years, and I've said nothing. That ends today. Just then, my phone buzzed with an unknown number. Normally, I would have ignored it, but something compelled me to answer. Gertrude, it's Jackson Moore. Jackson was a family friend with whom I had always felt a connection, though the timing had never quite worked out for us. He had moved away for work 3 years ago. Jackson, how did you get my number? Your cousin Lucy. Listen, I've been hearing some concerning things. Your dad's telling people you're having a nervous breakdown, that you need family intervention. I thought you should know. After thanking him and promising to catch up properly soon, I received another unexpected call. My boss, Cynthia. Gertrude, I've been reviewing the documentation you sent. This goes beyond conflict of interest. This looks like systematic financial abuse. The firm will support whatever actions you need to take, including legal representation. Later that afternoon, I received an anonymous email containing screenshots of a family group chat I wasn't part of. The messages spanned years, discussing how to best utilize Gertrude's success and leverage her connections. My brothers, sisters, and cousins were all strategizing about how to benefit from my career while minimizing what they contributed in return. The betrayal was comprehensive, yet surprisingly, each new revelation only strengthened me rather than weakened my resolve. The fog of familial obligation was lifting, revealing a clarity I had never experienced before. Aunt Helen returned the next day, carrying a folder of documents. There's something else you should know. Your college fund, the one your parents claimed they scrimped and saved for, was actually set up by your maternal grandmother. Your father emptied it during your sophomore year and replaced it with loans in your name. I stared at the bank statements in disbelief. How do you know this? Your grandmother asked me to be the custodian, but your father convinced her to transfer control to him instead. I've always suspected something was off, but I finally got proof when I started digging after Christmas. The next bombshell came from Marian Elliott, my godmother, who had moved to Arizona years ago. Her email arrived with the subject line, "Long overdue truth." Dearest Gertrude, I've just heard from Helen about what's happening. There's something you need to know. Your grandmother Peterson left you a specific inheritance of $50,000 upon her death 10 years ago. Your father, as executor, was supposed to transfer these funds to you. When I asked about it at the time, he said you had requested the money be used for family investments instead. I see now that was a lie. The revelations kept coming. Through my bank's fraud investigation, I discovered that the childhood home I had helped my parents refinance 5 years ago wasn't even in their name. The property had been transferred to a shell company, with my father listed as the hidden beneficiary. My $30,000 gift toward their mortgage had gone directly into his business accounts. Each discovery should have devastated me, yet instead I felt an unexpected sense of liberation. The guilt and obligation that had long defined my relationship with my family were being replaced by a determination I hadn't realized I possessed. Jackson called again, this time suggesting we meet for coffee. After 3 hours of conversation, where he listened without judgment, he looked at me with admiration rather than pity. You know, I always wondered why you never seemed interested when I tried to ask you out years ago. Your mother told me you were focusing on your career and weren't emotionally available. What? The magnitude of the interference in my life was still unfolding. I thought you knew. She would find ways to casually mention your issues whenever I was around. I eventually gave up, thinking you weren't interested. Another piece of my life had been controlled without my knowledge. How many relationships had been sabotaged? How many friendships manipulated? The isolation I had sometimes felt wasn't accidental. It was engineered to keep me dependent on the very people exploiting me. That night, I sat in my apartment, surrounded by evidence of years of manipulation. The family that had shaped my identity had also been systematically undermining my independence. The revelation was painful, yet ultimately freeing. For the first time in my adult life, I was seeing the truth unobscured by familial obligation or emotional manipulation. I was no longer alone in this fight. Aunt Helen, Jackson, Cynthia, Marion, and even family members like Uncle Frank, who were beginning to question the status quo. I had allies I never expected. The path forward was becoming clear, and it wouldn't be the reconciliation my family was desperately pushing for. It would be justice. By New Year's Day, the pressure from my family had shifted from desperate pleas to a coordinated strategy. My mother showed up at my apartment unannounced, tears streaming down her face. "Please, Gertrude, your father hasn't slept in days. The bank is asking questions about the business accounts. Jessica might lose her house." When her sympathy failed to sway me, she switched tactics. "After everything we've done for you, we gave you a stable home, supported your education. Is this how you repay family? Did Dad tell you he emptied my college fund, or that he's been taking out loans in your name? Or about Grandma Peterson's inheritance he stole from me?" Her expression flickered between shock and something else, guilt. She knew. Maybe not everything, but enough. "Your father does what's necessary for this family to thrive," she said defensively. "Sometimes that means making difficult decisions. Fraud isn't a difficult decision, Mom. It's a crime." She left in tears, but not before delivering a parting shot. "You're tearing this family apart. And for what? Money? Is that really more important than blood?" The family unity was beginning to fracture under pressure. Troy called to inform me that Jessica was now blaming him for not stopping me sooner. Adam was accusing Jessica of excessive spending that had put the family in this position. My aunts and uncles were taking sides. "Dad's business partner, Grant, wants to talk to you," Troy said, discreetly, without Dad knowing. Grant Wilson had been my father's partner for 20 years. Our meeting took place in a coffee shop 2 towns over to avoid being seen. "I've suspected financial irregularities for years," he confessed, sliding a USB drive across the table. "But I could never prove it. William is very careful." These are files I've been collecting: questionable transfers, discrepancies in client billing, and missing funds from project accounts. "Why are you giving me this?" Grant looked weary. "Because I have a daughter your age, and if someone were doing to her what William's been doing to you, I'd want someone to step in. Also, frankly, to protect myself. If this all comes crashing down, I don't want to go down with it." That evening, my youngest niece, Lily, somehow managed to call me from her mother's phone. "Auntie Gertie, Mommy and Daddy are fighting a lot. They keep saying your name. Are you coming for my birthday next week?" The innocence of her question broke my heart. "I don't think so, sweetheart. The grown-ups are having some disagreements right now." "Is it because of the secret money? I heard Daddy tell Mommy about secret money." Children hear everything. Before I could respond, Jessica snatched the phone away, hissing, "Don't you dare turn my children against me too," before hanging up. The next morning, I found a note slipped under my door. "Back off now, or things will get worse for you." The handwriting wasn't familiar, but the message was clear. The threats had begun. 2 nights later, my building's security system alerted me to someone attempting to access my apartment while I was working late. The security camera showed my brother, Adam, and one of my cousins retreating when the alarm sounded. I filed another police report. The family smear campaign extended beyond private conversations. A client called to ask if everything was all right, mentioning they'd heard I was having personal problems. My cousin's wife, a nurse at my doctor's office, had apparently been sharing concerns about my mental health with anyone who would listen. Midway through January, the most shocking twist yet emerged. While reviewing my credit reports with the fraud investigator, we uncovered multiple credit cards opened in my name, accounts I knew nothing about. The paperwork traced back not to my father, but to my sister, Jessica. Your sister has opened 4 accounts using your social security number, the investigator explained. The total outstanding balance is just over $26,000. I sat in stunned silence. Jessica, who had always criticized my materialistic lifestyle while vacationing in Europe and driving a luxury SUV, the sister who had tearfully borrowed money for her daughter's braces just last year, was now charging designer clothes on fraudulent cards in my name. When confronted via certified letter from my attorney, Jessica showed up at my workplace, creating a scene in the lobby. "How dare you accuse me of theft after everything I've done for you? You're just jealous because I have a family and you're alone." Security escorted her out, but not before she shouted that I was dead to the family and would regret this betrayal. That night, my car was vandalized in my assigned parking space. The word traitor was scratched deeply into the paint. The security camera had been deliberately angled away, but it wasn't hard to guess who was responsible. I filed for restraining orders against Jessica and Adam, using the security footage of Adam's break-in attempt and documentation of Jessica's workplace confrontation. The hearing was set for early February. In the meantime, my father made one last desperate attempt at intimidation, showing up at my office building and cornering me in the parking garage. "You need to stop this insanity right now," he growled, blocking my path to my car. "Move away from me or I'll call security," I said calmly, already dialing on my phone. "Do you have any idea what you're doing? The fraud investigation is spreading to the business accounts. If that happens, everyone goes down. Me, your mother, even your precious Aunt Helen, who did our books for years." Something in his desperation triggered a realization within me. This isn't just about the loans in my name or the credit cards, is it? His expression confirmed it before he could deny anything. Whatever financial web he'd spun was more extensive than I had imagined. "We can still fix this," he said, lowering his voice. "I'll pay back the Christmas gifts, I'll put the house in your name, whatever you want. I want the truth. All of it. You can't handle the truth. You think family is all sunshine and support. Sometimes it's ugly. Sometimes it's doing whatever it takes to keep everyone afloat." Security arrived before I could respond, and my father retreated, calling over his shoulder, "This isn't over, Gertie." He was right about that. At least it wasn't over. It was escalating. The most shocking revelation came the following week when the forensic accountant hired by my attorney discovered evidence of regular money transfers from my father's business account to an unknown recipient in Portland, Oregon. Further investigation revealed the unthinkable. My father had been maintaining a second household for over 15 years, a woman named Rachel and 2 children who appear to be college-aged. Regular payments, property tax records, even college tuition. My father had a second family that none of us knew about. When confronted with this evidence, my mother finally broke. She called me, sobbing uncontrollably. "I've known for 10 years, she admitted. "He threatened to leave me with nothing if I told anyone. The business was in his name, the house was in his name. What could I do? You could have protected your children instead of enabling him to exploit us." "I was protecting you. Do you think it was easy watching him drain your accounts, hearing him plan ways to use your success for his benefit?" "I fought him as much as I could." "Not hard enough, Mom. Not nearly hard enough." The family that had defined my identity, shaped my values, and claimed my loyalty had been built on lies so profound that nothing remained of what I thought was real. But from these ashes, something new and unexpected was emerging. My own strength, uncompromised by manipulation or false obligation. The counterstrike had revealed the full extent of the corruption, and there would be no going back to the way things were. The only path now was forward, into a truth I was finally ready to face. By early February, the situation had escalated beyond mere family drama to potential criminal proceedings. My father, desperate to maintain control of the narrative, launched a campaign to undermine my professional credibility. An anonymous complaint appeared on my firm's ethics board, alleging I had improperly mixed family and client business for years. The complaint suggested I had received kickbacks for recommending family members' services, the exact opposite of what had actually occurred. Bernard called me into his office, looking grave. "Gertrude, we've received some concerning allegations. Given our previous discussions, I'm inclined to believe this is retaliation, but we need to address it formally." I placed my documentation on his desk. Years of emails demonstrated that I had appropriately disclosed family relationships, proof that money had flowed from me to family businesses rather than the reverse. Bank statements revealed the systematic drainage of my accounts. "This is extensive," Bernard said, flipping through the files. "You've been dealing with this alone all this time." I didn't realize what was happening until Christmas. I thought I was helping family. I didn't understand I was being exploited. The ethics board not only dismissed the complaint, but also issued a formal statement supporting me as a victim of financial abuse. However, this professional vindication drove my family to more desperate measures. One evening, both my brothers showed up at my apartment, pounding on the door and yelling loud enough for neighbors to hear. "You've destroyed everything," Adam shouted through the door. "Dad's company is being audited. They're freezing accounts." "The police came to Jessica's house," Troy added. "Her children saw their mother being questioned like a criminal." I called building security, who arrived quickly and escorted them out. As they were leaving, Troy shouted, "This isn't over. Gertie, family doesn't quit." The stress began to take a physical toll. Chest pains sent me to the emergency room, where doctors diagnosed an anxiety attack. While I lay in the hospital bed, my mother somehow discovered my location and appeared in the doorway. "See what you're doing to yourself," she pleaded. "This vendetta is hurting you too. Please, let's find a way to move forward as a family." "The way forward is accountability, Mom, for all of you." She sat heavily in the visitor's chair. "Your father may be looking at criminal charges. Is that what you want, to see him in prison?" "What I want is for him to take responsibility for what he's done, what all of you have done." Her expression hardened. "You were always the difficult one, always questioning, never accepting your place. If you'd just gotten married and had children like your siblings, none of this would have happened. If I'd gotten married and had children, you would have found other ways to exploit me. You're just angry because I finally set boundaries." She left without another word, but her visit reinforced what I already knew. They still didn't see me as a victim of their actions. I was the problem, the ungrateful daughter who wouldn't play by family rules. The situation deteriorated further when family members began contacting my clients directly. One called to tell me he'd received an email from someone claiming to be my brother, warning that I was emotionally unstable and vindictively targeting family businesses. 2 days later, I discovered my par vandalized again, this time with the word "family traitor" scratched deeply into the paint. The security cameras had been deliberately disabled. My attorney advised filing formal cease and desist orders against multiple family members. When these were ignored, we proceeded with court hearings for restraining orders. The courthouse scene was surreal. One side of the room was filled with family members I had once trusted completely. My parents' siblings, several aunts and uncles, even cousins I had been close to. On my side sat Aunt Helen, Uncle Frank, my godmother Marion, who had flown in from Arizona, and Jackson, who had taken a leave from work to support me. As evidence was presented, screenshots of threatening messages, security footage of the apartment break-in attempt, documentation of identity theft and fraud, a hush fell over the family side of the room. Many had known fragments of what was happening, but witnessing the comprehensive pattern of abuse laid out legally seemed to shock even some of the participants. The judge granted restraining orders against my father, Jessica, and Adam. As we left the courtroom, I overheard my mother wailing to my aunt, "How did we get here? How could she do this to us?" Still incapable of recognizing their own culpability. The most unexpected turn came when the court documents revealed a pattern that extended beyond my own situation. Financial records indicated that similar tactics had been employed against elderly relatives. My great-aunt Susan's retirement funds had been managed by my father, with large sums diverted to family expenses. My cousin Peter's inheritance had been invested in my father's business without proper documentation. What had happened to me was not isolated. It was part of a multi-generational pattern of financial predation disguised as family taking care of family. That evening, my mother appeared at my apartment alone, looking decades older than her actual age. "I need to tell you something," she said quietly when I reluctantly let her in. "I've known about most of it. Not all, but enough. The loans in your name, the transfers from your accounts, Rachel in Portland. Why didn't you stop it? Why didn't you warn me?" She stared at her hands. "Because I was afraid. Because it was easier to keep the peace than fight. Because by the time I realized how bad it was, I was complicit. And yes, because we needed the money. That's not good enough, Mom." For the first time, there was no manipulation in her expression, just exhaustion and defeat. "I failed you as a mother. I can see that now." Her admission should have brought me satisfaction, but instead it felt hollow, too little, too late. The final revelation emerged through court-ordered discovery. Among my father's personal files was a document titled Family Financial Strategy 2015 to 2025. It outlined a comprehensive plan to leverage my career success, connections, and income for the benefit of the extended family. I was literally listed as their long-term security plan, with projected contributions mapped out for decades to come. My entire adult relationship with my family had been predicated on what I could provide financially, rather than who I was as a person. My childless status wasn't merely a disappointment to them, it was a feature in their calculations, ensuring I had no competing financial obligations that might diminish what I could give. The document outlined risks to their financial strategy, including my developing stronger boundaries, potential serious relationships, and career changes. Next to each risk was a mitigation strategy, everything from emotional manipulation tactics to specific language designed to instill guilt about professional decisions that didn't benefit the family. This was the breaking point in the truest sense. Whatever remaining emotional ties I had to my family of origin snapped completely upon reading their clinical assessment of how best to extract resources from me for years to come. I was not a daughter, sister, or aunt to them. I was merely an asset to be managed and exploited. And now that I had broken free of their control, I was viewed as a threat to be neutralized. The family I had known was dead. It had never truly existed, except in my own desperate desire to belong. What remained was the painful truth, and the opportunity to build something new from the ashes of those illusions. 6 months after that fateful Christmas dinner, I found myself standing in the sunlit kitchen of my new home in Charlotte, 300 miles away from the city where I had spent my entire life. This distance was not merely geographical, it symbolized a psychological and emotional boundary that had completely transformed my existence. The legal repercussions for my family members unfolded gradually. My father faced multiple criminal charges for fraud, identity theft, and embezzlement. Ultimately, he accepted a plea deal that included restitution, probation, and community service, narrowly avoiding prison due to his age and health concerns. His business crumbled under the weight of the financial improprieties exposed by the investigation. Jessica was charged with credit card fraud and identity theft. She received probation and was ordered to repay the $26,000 she had stolen, along with penalties. Her interior design business shut down, and her husband filed for separation, unwilling to be entangled in the financial and legal fallout. Adam avoided criminal charges but lost his restaurant when investors withdrew their support. Troy, who had played a smaller role in the exploitation, managed to salvage his architectural practice by completely separating from the family businesses and making amends where possible. My mother, though not criminally charged, lost the family home when it was revealed that the mortgage had been fraudulently obtained. She moved in with her sister in Colorado, calling me occasionally for careful, emotionally restrained conversations that acknowledged the vast distance between us. Yet, not all family relationships were beyond repair. My youngest brother, Troy, eventually reached out with a sincere apology and a desire to rebuild our relationship on healthier terms. "I've been seeing a therapist," he shared during his first visit to my new home. "She helped me understand how dysfunctional our family system was." We were all playing the roles that Dad had assigned us. "I don't expect forgiveness, Gertie, but I want you to know I'm doing the work to be better." Aunt Helen had become a regular presence in my life, calling weekly and visiting monthly. "I should have intervened years ago, but I'm proud of you for breaking the cycle." Uncle Frank and several cousins who had recognized the toxicity within the family system also maintained contact, helping to create a foundation for a chosen family rooted in mutual respect rather than exploitation. Professionally, I had not merely survived, I had thrived. After the ethics board cleared my name completely, Bernard offered me a partnership at the firm and the opportunity to open a new branch office in Charlotte. "Your integrity throughout this whole nightmare has been remarkable," he told me. "We need more of that in this industry." My client base had actually grown as word spread about my refusal to compromise ethical standards, even under extreme personal pressure. I became known as someone who could be trusted absolutely with financial matters, a reputation worth far more than any family connections could have ever provided. Jackson Moore, who had supported me through the darkest moments of the family implosion, had also relocated to Charlotte. Our relationship developed gradually, built on mutual respect and clear communication, everything my family relationships had lacked. "I always knew you were strong," he said one evening as we sat on my patio watching the sunset. "But watching you rebuild your life from scratch after everything they did, it's inspiring." Perhaps the most unexpected development was the support group I now led for survivors of financial family abuse. What had begun as my own healing process had blossomed into a community resource, helping others recognize and escape similar situations. "You gave me the courage to examine my own family's patterns," one participant shared. "For the first time in my adult life, I feel like I can breathe financially without guilt." My relationship with my nieces and nephews remained complicated. The younger ones didn't grasp what had transpired. They only knew that family gatherings had ceased and that Auntie Gertie had oohed away. The older ones had witnessed enough to form their own judgments, and several had reached out independently as they stepped into adulthood. My niece Rachel, Jessica's eldest, at 17, sent a letter that brought me to tears. "Mom won't talk about what happened, but I've pieced enough together to understand you were right to do what you did. I am applying to colleges now, and I'm interested in finance like you. Could we talk sometime about your career path?" That spark of connection with the next generation filled me with hope that the toxic patterns could truly be broken, not just in my life, but in theirs as well. The final interaction with my father occurred 9 months after Christmas when he requested a meeting through his attorney. Against my own lawyer's advice, I agreed to see him one last time. We met in a neutral location, a conference room at the courthouse. He appeared diminished, the commanding presence that had once dominated my childhood, now bent under the weight of consequences. "I wanted to say," he began, then faltered, seeming unsure how to proceed. I waited, refusing to make this easier for him. "I still believe I did what was necessary for the family," he finally admitted, "but I recognize that my methods were inappropriate." Not an apology, not really, more of a justification with a slight acknowledgement of overstepping. Is that all I asked? I want to know if there's a path back, he said, seeking some kind of relationship. You're still my daughter. I considered my response carefully. Biology made me your daughter, but your actions made me a victim. I don't see a path back to anything resembling our former relationship. So that's it. 40 years of family erased. The family I thought I had never truly existed. It was merely a facade covering system. Not an apology, not really, more of a justification with a slight acknowledgement of overstepping. Is that all I asked? I want to know if there's a path back, he said, seeking some kind of relationship. You're still my daughter. I considered my response carefully. Biology made me your daughter, but your actions made me a victim. I don't see a path back to anything resembling our former relationship. So that's it. 40 years of family erased. The family I thought I had never truly existed. It was merely a facade covering systematic exploitation. I'm building something real now, with people who value me for who I am, not for what I can provide. He shook his head, still unable to grasp the extent of his actions. You'll regret this hardline stance when you're older. Family is all we have in the end. No, I replied, standing to leave. Family is supposed to be people who love and support each other without conditions or calculations. What we had wasn't family. It was a business arrangement where only I didn't get to see the terms. I walked out without looking back, feeling neither triumph nor sorrow, just the quiet certainty that I was finally free. The following Christmas looked nothing like those that had come before. I hosted a small gathering in my new home, inviting Aunt Helen, Uncle Frank, his wife, Troy, his children, Jackson, and friends from both my professional life and support group. Everyone contributed equally to the meal and gifts. There were no hidden agendas, no financial scorekeeping, no manipulation disguised as tradition. As I surveyed the faces of my chosen family, I realized that the greatest gift arising from that terrible Christmas charge had been the chance to rebuild my life on a foundation of truth and authentic connection. The journey had been unimaginably painful, yet the destination was worth every difficult step. I had learned that family is not defined by blood or obligation. It is forged through respect, reciprocity, and a genuine care for one another's well-being. Sometimes, the most loving thing we can do for ourselves is to recognize when relationships become harmful and summon the courage to establish boundaries, even when those boundaries necessitate walking away completely. The transformation from victim to survivor to thriver changed me in ways I never could have anticipated when I first saw that credit card charge on Christmas Eve. I had lost a family, but found myself. And within that discovery lay a peace that no amount of false harmony could provide. What do you think about setting boundaries with family members who cross financial lines? Have you ever faced the difficult decision to distance yourself from unhealthy family relationships? I would love to hear your thoughts in the comments below. And if this story resonated with you, please consider liking, subscribing, and sharing it with someone who might need to hear that it's okay to stand up for themselves. Thank you so much for listening, and I wish you healthy relationships built on mutual respect and genuine care.